right, we're going to get started. So welcome everybody. I first want to thank the artists for participating and being so generous with their artwork and their time today to discuss the show Perpetual Impermanence. And I want to thank the Texas State University, the Honors College, and the Gallery of the Common Experience broadly helping us to make these exhibitions possible. This exhibition falls under the Common Experience theme of dynamics, which is a theme that can be broadly interpreted. The curators of this exhibition, Riley Tabor and myself, have interpreted dynamics as fluidity, movement, continuity, and the idea, more specifically with this exhibition is that we are in a constant state of flux, a constant state of change today, and reevaluating a lot of things about, everybody's reevaluating a lot of things about their lives that they took for granted and a lot of ways of living that have been taken for granted. So the exhibition Perpetual Impermanence specifically explores the nature of the photographic medium, and in doing so, attempts to think about the origins of photography, the most traditional practices, the history of photography. And all of the artists participating in this exhibition are making work that uses non-digital methods to produce images. They are slowing down the process of photography. If you think again about the democratization of photography and how we all have these cell phones at our hands and we could take a picture in an instant and then put it in Instagram and throw some filters on it. I mean, everyone's a photographer nowadays. So what does it mean to go back to these, to slow this down? What does it mean to go back to these processes that are, inherently, you don't have an immediate result. You have to wait, right? You have to, there's mystery, there's this idea of time inherent in these processes, which is not as obvious in the immediacy of photography today. And from a personal standpoint, Riley is a photographer. She is one of the artists participating in this exhibition, and my favorite media is photography, and I really enjoy these sort of older processes. I enjoy the look of the cameras. I enjoy the feel of having this 19th century, technology, as it were, at the time. I enjoy the mystery of something developing slowly. The surprises that can happen, the lack of control, which is something I desperately need in my life, is to learn to let go of things. And I think that these processes that you are all exploring force you to do that in a way. So that is the general overview of the exhibition. The Gallery of the Common Experience is located in the Lampasas building and what was the Honors Coffee Forum. In the current pandemic times, there's no coffee here, but there is really wonderful artwork and it's a beautiful exhibition. I encourage everybody to stop by. It is free and open to the public. It is one of the few in-person events that is happening on campus during this time. We are very honored to be able to keep in-person exhibitions happening. Even though I would love to be sitting at a big table with all of you talking face to face, we have to do this part in the virtual realm. It's really an honor to have this work in the space, and it's really beautiful. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn it over to the curator, co-curator, Riley Tabor, and she's going to say a little bit about each of you and introduce you, and then each artist is going to give a brief presentation on their work. Please put any questions that the participants and attendees might have in the question forum or in the chat, and we will absolutely get to them. We are all very happy to answer any and all questions that you might have, and we would love to engage in a dialogue with the attendees as well as the artists. So again, thank you all for being here. I'm turning it over to Riley.
Okay, hi everyone. Again, like Shannon said, thank you all for attending. I want to thank Shannon for letting me kind of take lead on a show. I've been like living and breathing this show for a couple weeks now and trying to get everything done. So I'm so excited that we get to share all this work with you. We're going to start with our first artist to talk about their work, which is going to be Rachel Tucker. And so I'm gonna, Rachel is a photography major at Texas State. And she actually has two mediums showcased in the show. So I'm gonna stop sharing and allow Rachel to take over.
All right, hello. It says that you disabled screen sharing. Hold on.
I got it. I got it.
Okay.
There you go. You should be good now.
Perfect. All right, so here we are. Are you able to see this?
We are.
Great. So I have 4 pieces in this show, 2 of which are made through 4x5 large format film, and the other 2 are 35mm black and white film. These first few, well, all of my work kind of focuses around this idea of the body and movement and form and space and time and how those all kind of correlate within each other. I really like to focus on those relationships, and film kind of really makes you slow down and focus on what you're trying to capture. And so these are a set of some of my favorites. These 2 are from, let me see, can you see this one too? Okay, great. So these first 2 are 4x5, and I think 4x5 is my favorite process so far that I've used. This is from a set of 6. It's called Stages. And I really focused on all of them on movement and these ideas of in-between movement. And I love that with film, you never really know how it's going to turn out until you develop it. And so the process in this, I did some long exposures to see how those would affect the movement. Would you actually be able to see the movement? Are you able to even tell what's going on? And so I love how these actually turned out, where you kind of get this in-between movement where it's kind of ghostly in this domestic spacing. And I love the process of developing my own film. And so that was kind of a scary moment to see if these would actually perform in a way that kind of shows that movement and shows that process. And developing in and of itself is kind of a movement as well. And I kind of really love that. So these next 2 are from a series called Disposition. And these are 35mm black and white film. And it's an entire series on hands. And it's all kind of based around this idea of longing and reaching for something, but you're not quite there yet. And so these are 2 from that series. And I went through an obsession with hands. This kind of started my obsession with capturing the body. And so this was the beginning of that obsession. And it's formed into this entire body movement and constantly questioning, constantly thinking of like, how can photography affect the body and how does it capture the body? How does the body move? And all these different questions that come up. And working with handheld 35mm is also a different experience, especially from 4x5, where it's this huge giant camera that's in front of you that you have to spend 10 minutes just focusing on your subject. And sometimes they get a little fidgety, but that's all a part of the process as well. And then this one is just handheld and it's a little bit quicker, but you still don't know what it's entirely going to look like until you develop it and see it in your hands. And I love that. So yeah, these are my 4 images. Yeah.
Can I ask Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about a 4x5 camera?
So it's this pretty large box looking thing, and it has this accordion style lens to it. And you or looking at the ground glass in front of you, and it's one of those cameras that you end up having to use the dark cloth over so that you can see what's in front of you. And it's upside down, and that's also a little challenging as well. It's upside down on this piece of glass that you have to really focus in on each detail and where you want to focus it. And when I'm focusing on it, it's a little different because my figures are typically moving. And so you kind of have to take that into account as well. But you use light meters typically for these. I mean, sometimes I guess, and sometimes it's wrong, and sometimes it's right. But it's all a part of the process as well, kind of a learning experience. But you kind of fix your own settings to whatever you're trying to do. So in these moments, I was doing long exposures, and I think these were 3 seconds long. So they were pretty quick, and these people had to move kind of fast as well. But again, we didn't really know how it was going to work out. And I only had, at this time, 10 sheets of film, and you stick it inside the ground glass. And then you release the shutter, and it's all just kind of unknown, and it's a little scary, but it's also really exhilarating. And it's also very hard to carry around sometimes. But yeah, so I like that bigger format as well. Seeing it blown up in like these huge prints is really nice. I feel like sometimes in 35 millimeter, you can't really get that as much. And I love the details that 4x5 really has to offer, especially if you do it correctly.
Excellent. We do have a question from a attendee.
Okay.
The attendee says, so the first two are based around movement and the last two are based on something that is just out of reach, question mark?
Yes, so yeah, these are from 2 different series. So they're both based around the body, but these first 2, the large format, are mainly based around movement and figure and form. These are just 2, so the other ones have more of the form kind of in them as well, or a few of them do. And these were one of the first film photos I ever shot, so I was still kind of playing around with these as well. Fernanda actually has seen these in person, and that was really cool. But yeah, these are kind of more of that loss and longing, reaching for something that is not quite there, or you're not sure when you're going to get it. And so, yeah.
Sorry, I'm muted. So the other thing that's really interesting to me about these is, I mean, especially considering our current state of affairs, we don't touch each other, right? Like, so these take on a whole new meaning considering the pandemic and like, and now what is inherently implied in human contact. It's now this dangerous thing. It's, it's something that you have to really think about and you have to be very conscious of and aware. Did you photograph these pre-pandemic?
These were pre-pandemic. These were in 2018, I think.
Do you embrace that kind of new understanding of them in the work?
Yeah, it creates more tension, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
already felt the sort of tension with them initially, but looking at them now in this context, it's crazy because I'm longing so much to be with my people again and see my friends again and talk to my artists again. And so this is kind of definitely taken on a whole new meaning, especially like with these. It's like you're so close, but we really can't do that right now. And
yeah,
it's very interesting seeing how this works. So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, back to you, Riley.
Okay, again, thank you, Rachel. Next, we're going to have Fernanda Hernandez show her work. Fernanda is a recent grad of TxSt, and the work she has in the shows in 35 millimeter film. So take the floor, Fernanda.
Thank you, Riley. Let me see if I know how to work this thing. All right. Share. All right. Is it sharing? No, now? No. All right. Bam. Yeah. That's pretty much. Is this working, guys? Yeah. Okay. Hello. I'm Fernanda. I am a recent grad. I miss San Marcos. I miss just that whole area. Just always fun to be around there, especially with the camera. Um, yeah, Riley was cool enough to reach out to me, and I thought it was really exciting. And specifically for the series that I did, which I think Rachel, right? Were you here for this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Anthony's class. But yeah, so this was back in 2019, I think. And this was on a trip to, I'll just start. This was on a super random trip to California. I needed to get my teeth pulled out, and my uncle's a dentist, so I went to California. um, anyways, this whole thing series was shot on a 35 millimeter and just black and white. And I was a little nervous about. I think this was the first time that I felt more confident using my camera. Kind of, this was like the first time that they came out, and I was like, okay, I completely had the f-stop wrong. After I came back from my trip, I realized that I wasn't using the right settings. So anyways, yeah, this is the first picture that I have. I went to Venice Beach, and I was just walking around by myself with my camera, and went to the skate park, and I just thought there was so much movement and just so many different people and so many different stories. And I like to really focus with my photography. I do a lot of just street photography, and for me, I feel like there's just so many stories around us, people and people going through different things, and I kind of always wonder what's happening, where I make my own kind of, story up or whatever. And yeah, this was one of my shots that I got, and it was just fun being around so many people and so many different situations, especially at a skate park. Yeah, I remember taking this one. This is the second shot. This guy was just so alive, and I thought it was so cool that this older guy was just had such a cool style and was just didn't if it's just like the whole floor was his, and I love that. And I try to capture it, and I was so nervous because I didn't really know how to work with movement with my film camera, especially. And so you have to learn how to be patient, which I am working on. And my own personal life is just how to lose control and how to be more okay with just waiting. And this was a fun one. This was a really cool, fun one to do, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let me see. What's next? This one, yeah, this one. I think it was just. I loved the idea of just trying and trying and trying, and I just watched these guys be there for hours, and try to that feeling alone of just getting something right. And I think now that I think about it, it's kind of just like, just like any kind of art or any kind of thing that you really want to just get down, and, that feeling. And this guy kept on trying and falling and trying and falling. And I just wanted to capture that. So that was, that's what was happening there. And I kind of like, this was my first time too in a dark room. And, of course, like I'm not like the most precise person, or like, like really neat. So all these little scratches and stuff, like at first I was really like anal about it. But now when I look back at them, I'm just like, I like them. And kind of shows where I was at during that time in that process. Yeah, I think this was like, this is the last picture. I think this is the last picture. This was towards the end of me kind of like being at the skate park. I think you can see the older guy in the background back there. But I saw a group of girls skating. Every single time I saw any group of girls, I just thought how badass, you know. And I just kind of just was hanging out there and just watching them just flow and do their thing. And I just thought it was really cool. They kind of came up like as a gang all together, and they just like started doing their thing. And I just wanted to capture that and show the different parts of that park. And I guess that whole California, you know, everyone, there's so many different types of people and so many different things going on. And yeah, it was really fun to shoot that. And yeah.
You know, I think it's really interesting. I'm glad that you spoke about the imperfections of the images, the, you know, the what looks like hair or scratches or things like that, because we're so conditioned to correct all of these things
Yes.
nowadays, right? And it's so easy. Anybody can, you know, can correct a photograph, and to kind of embrace the imperfection and embrace the process and then the naturalness of it. I really appreciate that. I like that. I like seeing that. It feels spontaneous. It feels unmediated. And it feels more genuine. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because you know, personally, I have control issues also. And I'd be like, oh my God, should I get rid of that? Should I not get rid of that? And
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Yes, exactly. I mean, so I think I'm really glad that you addressed that. And one of the questions I have for all of the panelists, and we can go back to you, Rachel, in a minute at the end, but why did you choose this medium? Like, what drew you to 35 millimeter? Because, you know, everybody's using digital cameras and phones these days. So
Yeah.
why these mediums for y'all?
I mean, for me specifically, it's the camera that I had, and at the moment, you know what I'm saying? And but that's what I had at the moment, and I didn't have and I was always worried. I was like, everyone has a 50 millimeter. I was like, this is what I got. I'm going to work with it. And I was in class to do it too. But before that, when I was younger, I just, like you, like, I loved just seeing all these crazy looking old cameras and being like, this is cool. This is a camera. Like, and where was it used? And, you know, how do the pictures come out like that? So I've always loved cameras. And when I had the chance to actually take more classes in doing that, and photography isn't my major, so I try to, like, you know, slide in there into those classes as much as possible. And I just love the slowness of it. And for me, I love movies and I love stories, and I feel like the more I work with film, the more it kind of gives me time to really sit and just kind of think about what story, you know, comes up. And that patience and that control is really important, because I feel like it reveals a lot more, and I really like that.
Yeah, and I just want to mention something that what really captured me about your images was like 3 out of the 4 you showed have a real sense of like anonymity to them. Like the skaters' faces are like blurred or you can't see them, and I think like a big part of photography a lot of times is to like capture an exact image of someone. And I think by having this sense of anonymity, it kind of feels like that could be anyone. You could insert anyone into these photos. And I really like that.
You know, and I yeah, like something relatable. Like you can relate to that story, or it could be anybody. Yeah, I like that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fernanda.
No, thank you.
Okay, so I think next we have Jacob Hernandez. And Jacob is a current communication design student. And the medium that they feature is, well, medium format. So go ahead, Jacob.
All right, hey guys, I'm Jacob. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Can y'all see this? All right, great. Basically with the series that I have here, I submitted 4 images, And these were taken around in this time 2 years ago, so 2019. And I had previously, before this, using the medium format camera, I was mostly just using a 35mm point and shoot, and then another one with just 2 point and shoots actually. And I had been working with that one for about 2 years, and then I got this gift from my dad, and these 4 photos are actually from like the first roll of me using the camera. So it's a lot of it's just like just getting to know the camera, and also just getting to know the people in these photos, because I had just like, I was new to San Marcos. This is like when I had just like transferred, and these are all people that I had just like met fairly recently. So I had known them for like a couple months at most. And this first photo is titled Accident because that's exactly what it is. This is the first several shots that I took on the camera, and when you're using this camera, everything's like analog, so you have to like manually like change it to the next exposure. And like I would keep forgetting to like use the dial to change the exposure, so I just took an accidental like multiple exposure photo, and the end result was like exciting. I mean, I wasn't expecting for this to come out when it happened. When I had experienced like, you know, realizing that I haven't turned it, I was like, oh my goodness, like what did I just do? And this is like the results of it, and it was very exciting to see it. It captures several people in it, and even like one photo of a building, I think, behind it. And then here we had access to a studio, and we were just playing with the camera. And I had this like shallow depth of field kind of. I had it focus on like one part of his face, his right eye.
It's not showing the next one.
How was it?
It's still showing us the like acrobat screen.
Oh my goodness. Here. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
All right, I'll just put it like this so it doesn't like mess up on full screen mode. But yes, this one was, we had access to a studio. We were just shooting around, and I love taking portraits. Even before taking photos, I'm an illustrator at heart. So I was taking, when I draw, I mostly draw portraits too. So yeah, I'm just fascinated with portraits. I love capturing people. Usually like in quiet moments. All the people that are featured in these photos are very like loud and crude and like joking around all the time, like teasing. And I just put them like on a stool, and I tell them, oh, hey, like just do whatever you want. And usually the first reaction is like stay quiet and like look all serious. And you know, I don't usually capture them like immediately. I usually have them sit in that position a while, so they're not just like trying to look good for the camera. So I try to capture this like quiet moment, so I don't really tell them when I'm going to take the shot. And same with here. We're just looking at various locations. We thought this was an interesting one to have in the backdrop. And same situation here. I just told him to stand, and yeah, just just capturing the quiet moments. And then same here, but in a different location. And this person now is actually my roommate, so it's funny to see these and seeing a new friend here, but now it's like someone that I live with. Yeah, that's all the photos that I had submitted.
Thank you, Jacob. I really, so I love how you talked about the accident photo, because it's that kind of thing that this media lends itself to, is this, you know, unexpected thing that happens. And oftentimes, you know, especially when you're in school and especially when you're doing a project, there's so much pressure to make everything perfect and to do everything right. And when you're working with a photographic process where you don't see an immediate result, there can be a lot of anxiety around like, did this come out? Is this going to come out? Because your grade is based on this thing, right? So I love that you kind of, not intentionally, but the photograph happened and then you were like, wait, this is something good, right? Have you tried to replicate it? Have you tried to take the accident, the happy accident, and then do something intentionally with that?
The majority of like multiple exposures I've taken are actually accidents, and it's just me like being fairly new to this format and just using analog equipment. But I would say like intentionally, maybe I've taken like 1 or 2 photos, but I would say sometimes it's the accidents that like come out the best because there's just that like randomness that occurred.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I also, I was making a connection with these portraits, especially the first portrait that you showed with the studio backdrop, this one, yeah. It's got a really, really direct connection for me to, traditional portrait painting, the Mona Lisa, Leonardo da Vinci, right? 16th century, 17th century portrait painting, this 3/4 view, the from the, waist up kind of, the spotlight, the stoic expression, right? Are you ever thinking about that when you make these photographs, the like tradition of portraiture?
As far as position and just a dramatic sense of like the poses that they're making, yes, but as far as like having a painterly quality to it, like having a soft environment, that wasn't intentional at first. It's funny that you mentioned it, like comparing it to a painting, because that's what the model, when they first saw it, they're like, oh, it looks so creamy like a painting. And I was like, that's like
It does, it does. I have a question from Michelle, and it says, would any of you consider your subject matter to have industrial aesthetic? Industrial aesthetic.
I'm not sure what industrial aesthetic is, so I can't really answer that.
Michelle, would you like to clarify that? Or would you like to ask your question live? We can do that. Okay. I think you have the ability to do that now. Oh, whoops, whoopsie. Okay, try again, Michelle. Sorry. Thank you.
I think you can unmute yourself if you want to, Michelle, and ask.
Hey, there we go. Okay, hi. So I guess industrial, I mean, maybe it's the color palette that has this concrete industrial, abandoned building, like the picture of your roommate, I guess with the pink hair. That's the picture, I guess, that spawned my question. It looked very industrial to me, in, I guess, its background, very intentionally rough, like rough around the edges. So I guess that kind of partially answered my question, like what would you call your aesthetic? Because while you all have different people in your portraiture, and as the focus of the subject matter, the whole quality of the environment, the lighting, the background, to me, I guess, seemed kind of industrial in its aesthetic. But maybe you have different words for it that you would use to describe it, or if you have a particular aesthetic that you think you have.
I don't think I have a particular aesthetic with these pieces specifically, because they're mostly like experiments, I guess. But as far as like having an industrial quality, I could see that, because using like film photography is kind of like an industrial, like the equipment's kind of in itself industrial, and like there's kind of a grit to it, if you don't clean up the exposures and stuff, you see like these dust and like spots on it. And in that sense, it's kind of like, kind of does have that quality to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for your question.
Thanks.
All right. That's
Okay.
cute.
So next we have Chantal. And Chantal is a current student and a photography and communication design major. So go ahead and show your work, Chantal.
Sure, thank you. Let's see here. Oh, cool. Can everybody see that? Awesome. So I just want to start off by saying thank you to everyone who's here. It is a very strange time to be an artist, especially because we throw our work out there, whether it's virtually or in an actual space like this show, but we don't have the option to connect with anyone and know who is seeing our work. So thank you for this opportunity to let us talk about our work, and thank you for everyone who's attending this talk to hear us speak. With all that said, let's continue. So this is my current artist statement. I want to preface this by saying the work that I'm going to show today I made in the fall of 2018 in my Foundations 2 class. So it's like, it doesn't directly correlate to my artist statement today, but there's like, I can see parts of it still, and then the growth. So just to explain a little bit about myself, I'm a conceptual photographer who uses photos to discover my identity, multiculturalism, and to understand the world around me. By utilizing color, studio lighting, performance, and myself, I make tangible photographs of the intangible, such as my memories, experiences, and dreams. I use myself as a subject as a form of empowerment, and I rely on symbolism to connect with my audience in a universal way to challenge the viewer to consider their preconceptions of women of color. Through my work, I'm turning the colonial gaze upon itself and regaining power and agency. So about the series specifically that I'm going to show, I shot all of my photos on 35mm. And if, just in case anyone doesn't know what that is, I used a camera similar to this one. And yes, I developed all the film myself. And in one of them, I printed it myself in the darkroom as well. So for these photos, early on in my photography classes, I kind of made like a moral decision that I wouldn't photograph anyone or anyone in a way that I wouldn't want to be photographed. So sometimes if I'm tackling hard subjects, I'll find a different way, or I use myself. So with this one in particular, I created a form and I put a dress on it, and it's supposed to symbolize the female form. And during our foundations class, they ask us to consider what is a body and what is a place and what is a space. And so thinking of that, also touching on the fact that this was in 2018, so there was a resurfacing of the Me Too movement. So this is the kind of headspace that I was in at that time. And I was really considering like, what exactly is a safe space for women? So that's what my series is about. So this first one, it's called Even in Well-Lit Areas. And like I mentioned, I'm considering safe spaces for women. And this one in particular, it stemmed from a conversation I was having with another girlfriend. And we were talking with a mutual guy friend. And I think she was giving directions or something like that, but she mentioned that she would walk down 6th Street late at night to get to wherever she was going. And I think he mentioned something like, oh, that's so gross. Why would you go down that street? Like, right, like so disgusting. But she mentioned it's the only street downtown that is extremely well lit and there's always people around. So it's the safest option for me. And yeah, so that was kind of like what was behind this photo. This one, it's called Walk With Me in honor of Haruka Weiser. If you don't know, unfortunately, a few years ago, Haruka Weiser, she was a very young student attending the University of Texas, Austin. I believe she was either a dance or a theater major, and she was walking home from her practice, or walking to the dorms from rehearsal. And unfortunately, on the way, she was raped and murdered. So I kind of went back to this space and took those photos there. And so, yeah, it has this kind of uncomfortable, like the lighting is harsh, but then the dress is giving this ghostly feeling to it. And so, yeah, that's what this photo is about. And finally, this is not a dialogue. And so I was still in the same feminist theory mindset. And I was thinking of how women are often put on a pedestal, but then at the same time, we're like put on trial. And sometimes it's even by the same people. And so I was considering this because I found this kind of stage setting, and like theater, it's often a thing like it's a positive experience, right? If you like acting and if you like being on stage, you like the spotlight, and it's a positive experience. But this particular theater, it's a little bit eerie, and there's nobody there. And then also there's this kind of like a downward gaze that the viewer has on this female form. And so that's just kind of like making an uncomfortable situation of maybe what was perceived to be a positive experience. And so I was thinking, so I looked up the common experience theme of this year, and I was thinking, how do my photos relate to it? And yes, there's movement in my photos, but I think the definition that really stuck with me was what I've highlighted here, was to explore your own experiences in the context of space, place, movement, and time. And also what really resonated me was the third bullet point, where it's a pattern or history of growth, change, development, or activity. Yeah, I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you. I have a quick question for you. And this came up when I was installing the show, and I was reading the titles, on the walls, and I was reading about the Haruku piece, and I was teaching at UT when this happened. And my question was, did you actually go to Waller Creek and take the photo at that site?
Yeah, it's in the area, yes.
Okay. What was that like for you?
It was very emotional and very haunting. And yeah, because I remember reading the news reports that the shortcut that she took was not very well lit at all. And by the time I took this picture, obviously that changed, because there's a light shining there now. But I imagine that it wasn't there before. So yeah, it was just really eerie to be around there.
Right. That's the other question I was going to ask you is how has that space changed, do you think, since that incident? For those of you not familiar with this is outside, this is between the dance building and the dorm. It's in the middle of campus. It's not, a scary wilderness place. Like, this is right on campus, and it wasn't even that late, in the evening when this happened. So I have not been to the spot since this happened. So I didn't know that they had put lighting up, but it's really interesting. I was really moved by this particular photograph because the reference really spoke to me personally. Yeah, I appreciate that. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts?
I just had the thought when I was looking at your pieces, something that really stood out to me about these. And I'd actually seen these before. I think they're up in the photography building. And I was like in love with them when I saw them in the photography building. But it's mostly, I like it, the way the dress is just kind of sitting on the form. It's kind of, that's how it feels a lot of the time when you're moving through public spaces, especially as a woman. It's kind of just being there for someone else to see. And these pieces are really incredible to me, the like pure emotion that this dress has sitting on the form.
Thank you. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because so I thrifted this dress, right? Because I had this idea. I was like, okay. And typically my process personally, like I can see the photo in my head and then I recreate it. But so when I was thinking of these photos, I didn't necessarily like see this dress, but when I was thrifting and looking through it, like I was like going through all these dresses, and I stopped on this one and I was like, oh, this is so adorable. And then I was like, I need to use this dress. Yeah.
I have a little just comment. I think it's really cool how you were able to just capture so many emotions in such a, like, I won't say simple, but in such a, I guess like a, oh, like a delicate way. I don't know how to really explain it, but you can just feel so much with that, and it tells so much in just a easy way, you know. And I love that. I love them, yeah.
I think, I mean, also thinking about the going off of that, of what Fernando said in the emotional resonance, you managed to, every single one of you managed to create images with a distinctly powerful human presence, some of you without even having the presence of a human, and I think that that's really interesting. And one of the things that I'm sure Riley was thinking about as a curator and tying all these works together is like the presence and absence of the individual, of the person, and that in and of itself being a dynamic thing. You're there and then you're not there, perpetual impermanence, right? So do you want to speak any about that, Riley, really quickly?
Yeah, it's definitely something I thought about. And like it also ties back to what I was saying about Fernanda's pieces earlier with like the anonymity of them, and kind of like seeing how people move through space, even people we can't directly identify or especially connect with. And I think that's also present in Rachel and Jacob's pieces as well. Rachel with the hands that we can't really identify, are the people that are these dancers that are moving in these long exposures. We see their forms and we're able to see that they're people, but we're not always able to fully connect with other people in our spaces. And there's an impermanence to the way we move through life. Thinking about like how you see strangers on the street and never see them again. So definitely a big part of this is kind of seeing how we interact with people on a non-permanent basis.
Yeah, we have a comment from Laura. Laura says, I think the lack of a physical body in the images really adds a universal aspect to the female body. When these acts are imposed on one woman, it really feels like it's happening to all of us. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for that comment. Yeah, absolutely. And that was exactly why I chose to have a dress represent the female form, because these are just not my stories. They're stories that so many other women or people can resonate with. So yeah, thank you.
All right, so our next and certainly not the least but last artist is Riley Tabor. And Riley Tabor is a ComDes student who is working in cyanotype. And cyanotype, she will talk a little bit about the process, but it is one of the first forms of producing photographic images. I have had the pleasure of working with Riley now for a year, and I think she's done an outstanding job with this curatorial assignment that I gave her, and I am looking forward to many great things from her. I will turn it over to her. All you, Riley.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Let me make it, hold on, just some things real quick. Okay, can everyone see presentation? Okay, cool. So like Shannon said, I'm a communication design student. I'm also an art history student. And I kind of added my artist statement relating to this specific series. And with this series, my art focuses on the human body and the structure that keeps it together. So I avoid portraiture and faces to allow the true focus to be on what keeps us moving, or conversely, what keeps us from moving as humans. These works serve as a documentation of mine and other struggles with health and the medical system. And through this documentation, I hope the viewers of my work are able to analyze their own bodies and how their privileges or disadvantages affect the physical way they walk through the world. So starting, oh wait, Oop. Okay. So this is my first piece, and it's called Pelvis, and I'll guess the method I used for all my cyanotypes is I took x-rays and made them into a negative, and then put on the cyanotype sheet, which is just, it's a sheet treated in chemicals to where when you put them out in the sun or put them in any UV rays, I think I had light boxes actually for these pieces specifically. The parts that are exposed to the sun turn this like fantastic blue color, and the parts that aren't stay white. And I think what drew me to doing cyanotypes when looking at x-rays was the way they kind of parallel in x-rays. Instead of this blue, you usually have the black with a series of grays. But I think the cyanotype kind of added a softer quality to it. But this specific x-ray, I believe, is from when I had, I like threw out my back, and I think I've had like every medical test done. I've had so many x-rays, I've had CAT scan, MRI. I've kind of been through it all medically, and kind of seeing this x-ray and seeing like the hole that's kind of in the center of your pelvis, I was like, yeah, that kind of how I feel after going through all these tests and trying to figure out what's wrong with my body or what's happening. And as a woman, it's a lot harder to get medical treatment a lot of the time, to get answers from people. And I think this is another one of those situations where I went into the ER and I said, my back is really hurting. And they told me take some Advil and go home, until I got x-rays, and it was a deep tissue tear. So that's my first one, pelvis. And then I have hip, which is from the same x-ray of mine, just a different angle. And then this one is actually an x-ray from a friend of mine. And I actually had access to quite a few x-rays. I was used to be on the rugby team, and the Texas State women's rugby team. And surprisingly, or not, a lot of women on the team get injured pretty often and have a lot of x-rays. But this one is from my friend Anna, and it's an x-ray for her scoliosis. So this one, I wanted to focus on the shoulder and this kind of like bright white spot that lit up, not for any reason other than she has a bone there, but kind of like highlighting these different parts of the body, while giving the hint of, well, a little bit more than a hint of something being wrong with her spine. And this piece fully focusing on that like full curve, almost like a snake that comes down. And it's just really incredible what shadows pop up in the cyanotypes, like this kind of light spot to the right. Yeah, I just think x-rays are such an interesting way to look at the body and to understand what's going on, because so much of the time things just hurt or things feel wrong and we can't even know what's happening without using these tools. Yeah, those are my 4 pieces.
Right, thank you, Riley, thank you. So I love that you talked about the kind of connection between the X-ray itself and the cyanotype process. I had not really thought of it in that way. It works really well, I think, that connection. Plus, the way you're thinking about the presence of the body, but the inside of the body and the non-specific body, although this spine is pretty specific. But it could be any person with scoliosis, or any person with this this type of abnormality in their body. And the way that these images become again similar to Jacob's portraits, almost painterly, because of the process. So you're taking this scientific thing, which is this X-ray that looks inside the body in a really detailed way, and then you're using the and that's modern technology and that's new technology, and they're using the oldest photographic process to turn this new late technology and this miracle of modern medicine into this really painterly sort of, you know, I think they're luscious. That blue is really luscious image. I think that's a really interesting conceptual connection for me. I am really interested in, I mean, I kind of want to go home and pull out my x-rays and play with those now. I mean, we all probably have x-rays somewhere. So I think that that's interesting. Have you done more of this work, or have you made more images relating to the idea of the body and the medical and things along those lines?
So I have a couple more with, I've gotten another x-ray from another friend. And then it's quite hard to get your own x-ray, surprisingly. I really struggle with that. I've had to contact so many hospitals, trying to get images from my own x-rays and things like that. But looking at like structure, and I've even used the same x-rays but zoomed in more on a certain part to get a more abstracted form, which I think is especially within this pelvis area of these x-rays. I find like this is just, even just this piece is one small part of a larger x-ray that was of my full torso. And so I think a great experiment that I've tried out a couple times is zooming in and almost making like a texture out of it. But the thing with x-rays is you get to a certain point and it doesn't like to be enlarged that much. The image does not hold up to enlargement as well.
That's super interesting. Okay, yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Riley about these images?
I don't have a question, but I just really like the like you just mentioned the textures of it. And I really like the softness of like this one in particular, like on the left hand side. I really like that softness of it and just all different shapes. So I like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Fernanda, because it's like for me, when I look at these, you know, and we talk about the theme of the show being this kind of non-traditional, or I mean traditional non-digital photographic process. The photographs that I'm drawn to when I go through art history books or when I go into museums are the ones that are super grainy, and they have I know that wasn't at all intentional. The artist would have loved a super high definition photograph in 1870, but the nature of the media just didn't lend itself to that. And to me, that gives it this kind of ghostly, ethereal, very moody feeling. And I'm really drawn to those. And I think that this and the cyanotype, and I've seen cyanotypes that don't, you know, you can get a super crisp, clean, you know, definitive value range from the cyanotype, but these have that kind of, you know, something is vanishing into the pool and then something is coming forward towards us and it feels mysterious and it feels like I want to touch it. Of course, I want to touch everything. Yeah.
These kind of remind me of, what is it called? The gallery. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the name right now? Oh my gosh, and the library, the gallery upstairs, the
Whitliff collection.
The Whitliff collection. He had some up there that they were super ethereal and just kind of just like, I don't know, I forgot who the artist was, but they kind of remind me of this in like, you know, photograph form, just like really kind of shapeless and just really soft and, you know, out in the woods and just nothing's really focused and everything's kind of just like warped a little bit. But this reminds me of it for some reason. It was there for a while, like on the right hand side when you went in. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Anyone else want to say anything or any more questions from our attendees? Okay. Well, I would like to thank everybody for being here. Rachel, Chantal, Fernanda, Riley, and Jacob, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us. It's really great to hear about your work. And I hope that you all get to meet each other in person someday, and I get to meet all of you in person someday. We will be posting images from the installation of the exhibition soon. and you'll get to maybe do a virtual walkthrough of some sort. I would be happy to do a virtual walkthrough with any of you at any time. You just reach out to me. I'd like to thank the Common Experience, the Honors College, and Riley Tabor for putting together a really fantastic show. She worked really hard on this, and it's turned out beautiful. It really is a beautiful exhibition. So please, everybody stop by, tell a friend, bring a friend. And thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.